Good evening and welcome to Chasing the Facts. This is Sam Chase, your host, and with us this evening we have three folks that represent the Chelmsford Dog Park, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves and give me the correct name of their association so that I don't butcher it. So starting at the end of the table, we have
Danielle Corsino, and we are on DPAC, otherwise known as the Dog Park Advisory Committee.
Dog Park Advisory Committee.
It is a town commission.
It is a town, and okay, that's a good thing to know. And then we have in the middle,
Erik Merrill.
Erik Merrill, who was a former animal control officer for the town of Chelmsford for many years.
Yep.
So, and then we have, lastly,
Barbara Reilly.
Barbara Reilly. Okay, so we have the three folks with us that are on the Dog Park Advisory Committee. And I'm going to situate this a little bit, and then you can take it from there. Because as everybody who watches the show knows, I'm old, okay? And so I grew up in the 1950s and the very early 1960s, not in Chelmsford, in a different town. But in those days, there were no leash laws. Okay, and so when I was a kid, I grew up with dogs running around in packs, and nobody really, I guess it was a problem to a degree, but not so much that at that time the authorities thought they had to control the situation. It was just something we lived with, and most of the dogs in my neighborhood were friendly, and we kind of enjoyed having them run around and so on and so forth. So that's my starting point. So in addition to talking about the Dog Park Association itself, maybe Erik, because you have the history and the knowledge, maybe you could give us a little bit from that point. How do we get to the point where we have laws that control the dogs and the leash laws, which would be the precursor, I would guess, to having a dog park, because if dogs are able to roam around, you don't need a dog park. Am I too far off there?
Nope.
Okay, please.
You're
good.
right in the ballpark.
Good. All right.
You're almost right over the plate.
All right. Thank you.
Back in the 70s, it's when it started with leash laws due to the fact of uncontrolled dogs, bites. Mm-hmm. The state took an initiative. And also with the migration of rabies from down south through the early part of the 60s and 70s, it worked its way up. So dogs needed to be vaccinated, licensed, and they put in, leash laws basically to stop the roaming of dogs, stop packs of dogs, also to try to control population explosions of, misfit mongrels being, bred from neighbors' dogs and stuff. And this, over the course of the years, you've seen stuff transform from, I remember when I was a kid living here in town back in the 60s and stuff, 6 o'clock at night to 6 in the morning, the dogs could run free and stuff. And then, they started changing it, but it was like I said, you got rabies, you got, unwanted puppies, you've got, bite issues, and pack mentality creates a lot more than just like a dog snapping at you, when you get a number of them. So that all worked towards having leash laws, and, and from that, we now have microchipping, which is, putting a permanent ID in the dog, so if it gets lost, you scan it.
Is that a requirement, or is that optional?
No, it's not a requirement,
okay, so
but
owner can opt to do that. Yeah.
Almost everybody does it now, because
Makes
if they
sense.
lose their tag, you have no idea who the dog is. But if you scan it and he's got a chip, which is about the size of a grain of rice, under the skin, you can tell immediately, oh, this is Sam Chase's dog, and hey, Sam, I got your dog, I'm going to bring him by.
Perfect.
So all that stuff leads up to, and the Department of Health for the state of Massachusetts and the Department of Epidemiology also worked with that due to the fact of rabies is 100% mortality if you contract it. So through that, was mandatory state rabies vaccines. And then when we have the town leash law, you have to have your dog licensed. To have it licensed, it has to be current on rabies. So it all works together to provide a safer environment for the dog and people. With that, with leash laws, a lot of time it transforms into people say live in an apartment or a small condo. Well, you can't go play catch in the backyard, or you can't let the dog run to get exercise. So people go, what should we do? I used to get that as an animal control officer. I'd get stopped. I'd see somebody, letting the dogs run loose on the football fields, and it's just like, hey guys, come here. School doesn't want your dog on the football field, not because it does damage, but the feces and stuff like that. This is for kids to do sports on, not roll around and stuff. So we'd get a lot of people, and when you ever go to Roberts Field, and you got 5 years old playing t-ball, and they step in stuff, and no place to clean it. It's not fun.
Right, right.
So I used to tell them that there's nowhere to let a dog run off leash except your own yard.
Now back up one second. Let me ask a question, because I think I heard you say at the outset that the leash laws came about, at least in part, through some sort of a state mandate.
Well, the rabies became a state mandate.
Okay, so
and then licensing followed after that, but
now, so does every municipality have to have a leash law?
yes.
Okay, all right, that's where I was going. All right.
Well, not necessarily a leash law, a licensing law.
Okay.
Carlisle still is like borderline on their leash laws and
Okay,
stuff.
all right.
But
But
they
small
have to
community.
be licensed
Yeah.
and they have to be vaccinated. Those were the first two major components.
Now I know why when you go to the Carlisle Cranberry Bog,
Bog,
you can see the dogs off leash.
Yeah.
Okay, so
People
now
bring them there and just
you've
let 'em
answered
go.
that question. That's great.
Right.
Okay.
So with that, everything's gotten tighter, and disease control, everything is played into effect with that. And the Department of Agriculture is the governing body of all animal control officers in the state, which every town has to have a dedicated animal control officer. There's quarantine periods, all kinds of stuff that you deal with, public health issues from animals. That brings like leash law really into effect, because if dogs are running around and doing their business all over the place, they could be spreading anything, distemper, stuff that we see though, wildlife get, they get, so it was very important, and it's important to, bring this to light so, you're not infecting, other animals, other people, stuff like that. With that comes, where do I bring my dog?
Now we get to the dog park.
Right.
Right.
So back in 2008, the town purchased Sunny Meadow.
Yes.
Town Manager Cohen had put out an email to all employees, what could we use the property for? And I've been dealing with a lot of questions of where can I bring my dog, what can I do? And so I sent him an email saying, how about if we build a dog park? And he's like, what's a dog park?
I think that's what I would have said too.
Right. So I had a bunch of magazine articles and stuff off the internet, and I brought a big folder with him, and I showed him, and he was really game for the idea. So we looked at Sunny Meadow, and with the conservation and agriculture and stuff, it says, hey, well, that might not be the best location. So we did a, what was it, 7-year
Yeah.
search for a property that would be accessible for everybody, be it elderly, handicapped, families, whatever. But it was also visible, so if a police cruiser went through and went by, they could see in. If anyone was there alone, they'd feel a little bit more comfortable knowing that they're visible. So we looked and looked and looked, and then finally, as the DPW was moving out of Richardson Road to the new facility on Alpha, Paul said, hey, what about the DPW? It wasn't our first choice due to the fact there was no shade, it was all sand. But then when we looked at it and we wanted a large parcel, not something small that would be overcrowded and a nightmare. So we were able to get 2 acres. And then hence, from there, my wife Vivian, I conned her into
And
Her
folks,
and a
trust me, she is not easily conned.
no, her and a bunch of other
Right.
people to start the Chelmsford Dog Association, which was like a PTA group, a mother's club type thing, doing fundraising, you know.
That's where I got the word association.
Exactly.
Thank you. I knew it came from someplace. All right, all right. I feel
So-
better now.
That's just another entity.
Exactly. So she started that, and they started doing fundraising through yard sales and odd events and stuff throughout the year to raise money. Finally, we got a grant from the Stanton Foundation for $250,000. We had to, the CDA at the time had to get a 10% money to put down as I don't know what you call it, as like
Good faith.
good faith, right?
faith, right, exactly.
So we had raised that money in the 6-8 years that we were doing the fundraising. So that was what brought apart the dog park to be built. We had the money, we had the land, and then it was a bunch of concessions afterwards because we had really delusions of grandeur of what the park could be. And, you know, that got scaled back quite a bit to what is, you know, the dog park now. When it was first opened, it was basically leveled, graded, cleaned up, seeded, some paths in it, the parking lot, and a fence. Since then, over the course of donations and contributions, it's got gazebos and shelters and stuff like that. But that basically, it goes from people saying, hey, where can I bring my dog to let him run loose?
And this is a volunteer group.
Yes.
Okay, so we're not, the town isn't paying salaries to anybody
No.
to manage it or anything like that. And the group maintains the facility. So how much land do you have?
There is 2 acres.
That's pretty good. That's good
Right.
sized, okay?
Yeah.
That's good sized. And I have a dog and I want to access the park. What do I have to do to get started?
First thing is, you know, we always say just be able to read. And when you go there,
Well, that's a problem for some
for
folks,
some
I
people,
understand.
I know, but the only requirement that we really have is as you're walking into the entrance of the park, read the rules. And that's for the dog safety, your safety, other people's safety, is just read the rules to know what is allowed and what isn't. But other than that, people from Chelmsford, Lowell, Drake, Billerica, we have people coming
out of
from
state.
Connecticut.
So there's no restriction as to, okay, that's good to know. All right.
And the only criteria is just please follow the rules.
Well, that tells me there aren't that many dog parks around.
No.
Okay, if you're getting folks from other towns and out of state even.
There are a few.
There's a few, but they're,
Okay.
They're not as good as ours.
they're not as good, they're not as
I'm not
big.
surprised to hear that.
A lot of them are small. So, I mean, you go to the dog park,
2 acres is a lot.
it is, but it gets full. It really does get full. The parking lot, I mean, we've seen people parking on Richardson Road because
Okay.
there's nothing in the parking lot.
I've been by there many times,
Yeah.
and it's very well used. So, so Danielle, how long have you been with the group?
Well, I saw the ad in the paper that they were trying to start up something
Oh, so from the beginning?
from the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah. So about 15 years probably total.
Yeah,
So,
and you have the only knowledge I really have of the dog park is, I'm ashamed to say, is what I read on Facebook, which may or may not be accurate, but.
It's a little cloudy.
Yeah, it's a little cloudy, and, you know, occasionally you get a little insight as to some of the problems you might be having, which you have with any organization.
Exactly.
Okay, so describe for us a little bit the hierarchy. You know, you have a president, and you have people that are designated to do certain things, and how are you organized? Or are you organized? Maybe that's a better question, I don't know.
Well, there's 2 groups.
Right.
Okay,
We're on the town's board, so we're basically the town's officiating of the whole dog park.
all right,
And Danielle, Barbara, myself, Arthur Corsino,
Vivian.
and Vivian,
Vivian,
are on the board for DPAC.
okay.
We have a MOU with the Chelmsford,
Memorandum of understanding,
yes,
okay.
with the Chelmsford Dog Association, and it's an annual review. as long as our
Folks,
requirements.
this is getting complicated, so pay attention. Okay, continue.
Yes, we have an MOU with them, so they work for us, maintaining the park and doing the maintenance and, you know,
Interesting.
sometimes fundraising and stuff like that. Us as DPAC, you know, do what's the town's bidding, you know, what the town is looking for, keeping it, you know, per legal counsel's guidelines and, you know, following everything we need to follow.
And I'm guessing the reason for that type of organization is because you are on town-owned land.
Yes, the
Okay,
town
and
owns the
and that's
land.
the justification for that kind of a structure, and actually that is required. So yeah,
Right.
that makes perfect sense.
And the liability of the park
Exactly.
is the town's liability
Exactly.
insurance.
The foundation that gave us the grant initially, they requested or they required that there be a town entity overseeing. So that's how DPAC formed.
Okay. This is all great information, and so I'm glad we're doing the show because I'm learning an awful lot of stuff. Now, but don't give me a quiz in a week because I'll probably forget half of it, but that's okay, you know? I think it's great, and so I would say just based on the few times that I've driven by and seen, you know, a pretty good number of people there. So what are your peak times that people like to come?
It's all over the place.
And what are the what are the hours of operation? It's not
Sunrise to
To
sunset.
sunset,
okay.
yeah.
All right, so that's a typical. That's the way an open space would be
Right,
managed. as
the
well.
beaches and everything.
Exactly. Okay, so that's good to know. So you could have this time of year. You could have somebody out there at 5:30 in the morning,
Yeah,
and up until 8:15 or so.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good and 7 days a week.
yeah.
Yes.
Yep, 7 days a week. Now, how is the access? Is it gated in any way? People just walk onto the property? How does that work?
Yeah, people walk onto the property.
Okay.
They have an entrance, and when you go into the entrance, on the right is the small dog park for the smaller dogs under 25 pounds. And then if you go through the main entrance and to the left,
I like that.
for the bigger dogs, over
Yeah.
25 pounds.
That makes perfect sense. Now, was it always that way, or is that something you learned as you went along?
No, it's,
It's always,
From the start,
yeah.
we always
I-
had that.
Well,
yeah.
you know, that doesn't surprise me because, of course, with your knowledge, you know, that's something that you would know right off the bat.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure I would have thought of that if, you know.
you know, you get some dogs that, you know, you get a Saint Bernard.
Don't laugh, we have
Yeah,
some.
I can
We
imagine.
have some.
And, you know, you got a small little Pekingese sitting here.
Yeah.
It could just roll them right over. Then again, we have some small dogs that are in
Oh.
with the big dogs, and
Yep.
let me tell you,
I've seen the small dogs hold their own
yes, they
many a
do.
time. Right.
But it gives,
Yeah.
you know, the smaller dogs that are more intimidated and shyer around big dogs, their own little area where they're hanging around with dogs their own size, and it's quite large. It's not, you know, just a little 10 by 10 area. And then the all dog side is for anyone and everybody.
Right.
And I'm going to guess, again, I follow it a little bit on Facebook, and occasionally there are some issues and some problems, but I just get the sense from my high-level reading that you really don't have significant problems with most of the people who patronize it.
As long as they follow the rules.
As long as they read the
Rules and
rules
follow
when they
them.
come in.
Like
Right.
going in the entrance and
Okay, so tell us,
Leaving by
what
the
are some
exit.
of the rules?
no food. They have some beautiful picnic
No
tables.
food
But-
for dogs or people?
Nope,
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly, no
all right.
food. No treats for the dogs.
All right,
No
No
toys.
toys.
okay.
No.
Pick up after your dog.
Yes. Very big. That's huge.
Dogs must be 4 months at least.
Okay.
They're not all vaccinated, I think,
Right.
before then,
Right.
so.
They're not required to have rabies
All right, does somebody,
till they're 6 months.
and they have to have their tags on,
Yes.
obviously. Okay.
Ideally, yeah.
All right, that's good. So it's regulated to that extent. So you get legitimately licensed animals into the park, so
Yes.
people don't need to worry about things, as you
We,
say.
you know, back when I was as ACO, I made frequent stops throughout the day, stopping by, checking it. And one thing I always said to people, a lot of people don't let their dogs wear the tags because they're afraid they're going to get caught on a fence, another dog
Okay.
bites it, it could create a choking hazard. State law says you must have it on a sturdy fabric or leather collar, but a lot of people, look for the safety of their animal. And I always told them, it's like, if you're doing that and you're coming into the park, at least have the rabies certificate and your license, a copy of the license in your car.
Yeah, keep it in the
Create
glove
like a
compartment.
little
Right,
dog
exactly.
park kit.
Yeah.
That if something happens, you have everything there, you can show. We had an exchange of information form that they could keep. So Brutus and Rex get in a tussle, you can exchange situation, and then the fact if one has to go to a vet and get a shot or something, you would know who the other party was.
Now, I'm sure it's because you've been in operation now for what?
8 years.
8 years, all right. So I'm sure that you have had a few situations where you've had, shall we say, inappropriate dogs
Dog behavior?
in your inappropriate dog behavior. So how is that when, on the rare occasions that happens, how is that dealt with?
What we do is we look, and we want to tell everybody.
And the reason I'm asking
Yeah.
the question, folks, is so that if you're not currently a dog park user,
Right.
I'm trying to get enough information out there so that you have some of these questions answered, and we don't want you to be afraid to go and use the dog.
Oh, exactly.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Go ahead, Eric.
What we try to tell people, and a lot of people see the CDA because maybe they're cutting the grass and stuff down at the dog park. But if a situation arises, be it a dog, a person, anything, if it's an emergency, call 911 right away. Just call the police department because they'll send an officer. If they have to send animal control, they'll send him. They'll send whoever has to be the emergency personnel
Okay.
on seat. Now, if you're having a problem with a dog that's being aggressive every time it shows up in the park and that, we, as the Board of DPAC, our names, our emails and phone numbers and stuff are on the town website as members of the Dog Park Advisory Committee. We welcome any feedback, any kind of information. If you have a problem, address it to us. And we say a lot of the times, please send an email, because that constitutes a valid document.
Well, it's documented, right?
Paper trail.
Exactly, a paper trail. So if we have to go to the extent, which we have in the past, of having somebody banned from the park, we've got a paper trail of where it started, the progression, and then when it gets to a certain point, we turn it over to the town manager who brings it to legal counsel. They draw up a draft, and then they'll
Wow.
do like a no trespass, or whatever has to be done at that point. But, if there's a problem, we'll send letters to the people saying, hey, your dog got in a fight with, so-and-so. There was a scratch. We need your information, stuff like that. Whatever it is, we'll try to work with both parties. We have meetings that are posted upstairs of the town hall when our meetings are, and we
Again,
welcome the public.
You're on the same footing as any other town board. It's
Yes.
Yes.
subject to the open meeting laws. You have to
Yes.
do the posting. The public is
Post
cannot
the
be-
agenda.
Cannot be post the agenda. The public cannot be excluded from the meetings
Right.
Exactly.
and can participate.
And the minutes are posted afterwards
Exactly.
and stuff, yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we follow all that, and we welcome any feedback. If something is not, constantly going wrong, and you don't tell us, complaining on Facebook is the last thing. Because all that does is create a riot between people posting. It doesn't
Oh, yes, it does.
it doesn't solve
read
the
it.
situation. But if you talk to us, we'll immediately take action, and we'll address it through the appropriate channels. We're not going to just go, whatever. Facebook, it goes nowhere.
Right.
And I mean, we don't all troll the Dog Park Facebook page or
But-
Chelmsford News Facebook page.
It's great, though. I love the way this is set up because you, among other things, you're an enforcement group as well. So you're in charge of making sure that the rules are obeyed, the dog's behavior is within bounds, and if
Right.
there are issues, infractions, what have you, there is a process in place to deal with that.
Correct.
And it's followed through, and I would say, based on what you just described, it's handled very well, okay? So people need to be comfortable that that's the case, and safety is paramount, because again, we're talking dogs, and I'm sure most of them are very well behaved, but we are dealing with animals, and you just are not always sure of what an animal is going to do or how they're going to react to a specific situation.
They have
we
bad
also-
days like us.
Yeah, and plus we have,
Right.
I'm sorry, we have timeout areas fenced within the park.
Spoken like a former teacher. Okay,
You're right.
was that your idea to do the time? No. Okay.
No, but yes, we do have those.
I think that's a great idea. So, how does that work when you have to put the dog?
The dog
in
has to go
timeout?
in timeout. They shut the gate. They're in the
Okay.
park, but it's surrounded by a big
Like a
a cage.
6 by 10 foot kennel.
Kennel, yeah.
Okay.
And they have to stay there for a while to settle down.
It also gives the person, if there was an altercation or something. I mean, one time we had a woman got kind of bowled over by a pack of dogs.
Ooh.
Well, she broke her leg. So they were able to take and put her dog and confine it in the kennel. The other people grabbed their dogs. The fire truck, were able to come. All the gates are, we have gates big enough that the ambulances and stuff can just
Right.
roll right in. They come in, they got her, they packed her up, and then it kept her dog from just running around, frantic.
Right.
And it's helped in situations like that when you're trying to, maybe break up a fight, or not just because, okay, you didn't sit, you're going in timeout.
No.
But for altercations. and
Aggressive
stuff, to just
dogs.
try to, you break the mentality of what they're doing.
Right, right. The intervention at the right time.
Right.
So I'm going to guess you probably have more problem with the people than you do with the dogs.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gone up to people to remind them of the rules, and I'm sometimes met with some very nasty comments. One of them wanted to know if I owned the park. Well,
Yes, yes, I do. Okay.
But it's like any other place. You run into some people who are more than happy to adhere to the rules, and then you run into people who say, "I don't have to listen to you." It's just it's
It
people.
does blow your mind, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But you get that in any public area. They have the
course,
same
of
problem with the
course.
public
Yeah.
beaches and so forth.
Exactly.
Right,
It's the same thing. And,
Yeah.
we try not to encourage the people to call the police department on every single thing. If it's a serious issue, yes, absolutely. They're public servants. They're there to serve, and so is the animal control officer. But, I mean, if you're just not getting along with the way that dog does, try talking about it. Or, we've always said to people, you know what? Take your dog, go home, come back another day. Or maybe that person will. Just don't get so upset at, people's individual behavior unless it's, causing major problems. If you have an aggressive dog, that's different.
Right.
But if you have a dog that's just running around happy in the head and, he's not watching what he's doing, it's a dog park. You're entering
At your own
you're
risk.
at your own
Well,
risk.
that's true.
Right.
That's true. Now, one other question I have, is there usually somebody from either of your groups at the park, or do you have to have a presence there, or
No.
how does that work? So people can just show up and,
Well, I'm usually there.
I mean, a lot of people
I'm
are
usually
there.
there every
and-
day.
we're talking habitual users mostly, right, who are totally, they've been there for years, they're totally familiar with the rules.
Right.
And everybody has a cell phone, so that if
Right.
there is a problem,
Right.
you know that the responsible folks that are there,
Right. And we also
regulars,
use
are going to take care of it.
the theory of peer pressure.
Yep.
Say you've been a member or a park user from day one. You know that you can't bring food in, but if you see somebody sitting down with a Happy Meal, you could say, hey, here's the rules.
Yeah.
You can't bring that in here, and just mention it to them. We don't tell people to get into an altercation. If the guy starts flipping out, you just walk away. But
Right.
just try to educate your
Right.
fellow park user.
I think most people probably respond okay.
Right.
Yeah, most of them
Exactly.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, the majority do, yes.
So, well, that's great. Well, we've got about 30 seconds left, and very quickly, any last parting shots here that anybody wants to make?
Just, if you go to the dog park, follow the rules. That's
Right.
the most important thing.
Right.
And the best time to go, if you have a shy dog, first thing in the morning, from around up till about noon.
Okay, that makes perfect sense, and probably especially this time of year, from a heat standpoint.
Right.
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 That also
Exactly.
makes the best sense. So very good. I'm very glad we had you folks here. We're out of time, and we probably could talk for another half hour, so we'll have to have you back at some point.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Great show. Perfect.